It will look different in a year than what you think it's going to look like now. Be flexible, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace. There's nothing you can't figure out. If you have an internet connection, the whole world is at your fingertips.
Are you at a crossroads in your career or in life? Well, don't worry, because life's next chapter is waiting. This is the Second Act Success Podcast. I am your host, Shannon Russell. I'm a television producer, turned boy mom, turned business owner, podcaster, and career coach. If you are looking to start a new career or begin a fresh chapter in life, then get ready to be inspired with stories of women who have done just that. We will share advice and offer steps you can take to help figure out what your true calling in life really is. It is time to shine, so let's turn the page and get started. Welcome to Second Act Success. Debra Alfarone is my guest on this episode of Second Act Success. She is an award-winning journalist and network TV correspondent. Debra is still a powerhouse in TV news, but she launched into her second act a few years ago as an on-camera confidence coach. She works with women so they can feel empowered on camera and off. Debra just launched her own podcast and video series called Beep, I Wish I Knew in My 20s. And a book with the same name is on the way. She and I shared stories of our TV production experiences, and she had me laughing this entire interview. Let me introduce you to my friend, the incredible Debra Alfarone. Hi, Debra. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
So much to talk about. Let's start with the beginning of your journey.
Oh my gosh. Well, how long is this podcast? Number one, but no, I'm kidding. So I am a high school dropout turned network TV correspondent. Now, it ain't as easy as that little, snippet right there. Obviously, a lot happened between A and B, but I just grew up in Hicksville, Long Island, an aptly named town. Not much really happened around there at the time. And I came from a family that, I was kind of ignored. My parents had a lot going on. My mom suffered from anxiety. They were in the middle of splitting up. And so I was basically left on my own to figure things out. And I didn't do such a great job. I dropped out of high school. I was always a smart kid. I just didn't have mentors and role models. So I ended up going back to school and finding some mentors here and there, people who could show me that my life wasn't going to be just, working at the grocery store, which is nothing wrong with. I did it for a long time. And I could kind of try and be something else.
So you went out and found your own mentors. You found your own schooling. And where did that lead you? When did you decide I want to get into TV?
Well, I always loved putting things together and being creative. So my friends and I, we would get little cassette recorders and make little shows and things. And we were pretty funny, to be honest with you. So I was always creating. I would even get my dad's camcorder and I would make things. So I always loved telling a story. However, I didn't know that people could get paid for that. So I dropped out of high school. I started working at Geico Insurance. So that was a place in my town where a lot of people worked. I worked there. And, I met lots of people who were, professionals, right? So I learned from them. And then I decided I'm going to go to college. I put myself through college working at Geico and getting loans and stuff like that. And then after that, I just got a job in an office. That's what I saw people doing. So I thought that's what people did. So I never thought that I could be someone on TV who told stories because I didn't know anybody who did that. However, what I did know is that if you want to find out anything, just keep your eyes open and look and ask around. And so lo and behold, I did meet people that did different things. And I thought to myself, this is really something I want to pursue. I got the opportunity to do that by just asking people. And I was really just an open book and kind of like a sponge. So I would take meetings with people. I don't know how the heck I got meetings with people, but I think just being naive helped, to be honest with you. And it all kind of culminated one day when I was home watching 48 Hours. And I was like, oh, this is a really good show. I really like this and I want to do this. Okay, well, just a note. You don't wake up in this business and work at 48 hours. It doesn't happen overnight. But I did watch the credits and saw the person with the most important title and basically did a cold call. Her name was Susan Zirinsky, and we chatted on the phone. She actually invited me to CBS. And I got to see all these people's offices. I was like, whoa, CBS in New York City. This was incredible. I mean, it is not that far from Hicksville, but it might as well be another planet away.
Mm-hmm.
I got to just get a taste of that. And that kind of led me on my way. Long story short, I started off in small markets. I mean, I did stories about cows getting out. I worked all day for $75, 2 days actually, because I would do a shoot and then edit it to put together a story. And not that long ago, a couple of years ago, Susan Zirinsky was named the head of CBS News. Not just the head of 48 Hours, but she was going to oversee the whole news division. And we'd kept in touch all those years.
Wow.
So she didn't give me a job, but she did say, here, let me connect you with the talent person. And the rest is history.
But that's what you needed. You needed that person to take a chance on you.
Yes, we all do. We all do. And I want to be that person for other people too.
Oh, absolutely. It took a lot for you to have the guts to just say, I'm going to cold call this person. Let's remind some of our younger listeners that back in the day, you couldn't just Google that person and find out their email. You did have to call, or you had to like mail a letter in. I interned at CBS News in college in New York City. So I just remember it was a different process than today.
I will say this, I coach young women to be good on camera and to grow their journalism careers. I'm an on-camera confidence coach. But the thing is that they want to send an email, and an email lands differently than a phone call in this day. Like in 2022, call people. They'll be like, whoa, my phone rings. Like, what is that? They won't know what to do. But that's the easiest way to get to someone directly.
That's great advice.
It works.
So what was your first job in TV, your first big break?
My first big break was I was carrying a camera, and it was not one of those little cameras. The whole entire gear was 40-something pounds. And I was carrying it around the 5 boroughs of New York City as a news assistant for New York One, where I got paid $10.50 an hour to shoot what we call, as you're a producer, you know, VOSOTs, which are basically get some video, get a soundbite, and just tell a little bit of the story. And I didn't know what I was doing. I probably looked so pathetic carrying that gear because every time I'd walk into a press conference, people would go out of their way to help me. I probably looked like I was in pain carrying it all. They're like, here, give me that. I think they just took pity on me because I was little. I was skinny.
But you were doing it. You could have given up that first day and been like, this is manual labor here. This is too much work. This is not what I thought. But you didn't.
No, I didn't. I don't know that was ever a choice. It never occurred to me.
Tell me how your career kind of progressed from there.
So I worked at New York One, and I was behind the scenes just shooting video. Then after that, I was putting together a tape. You know, you need a reel. You need a reel to go send to news directors. And so I put together this tape. I was not good, but I did it. And anytime they'd send me out to shoot something, I would shoot a stand-up, me on camera, saying something about something. Who knows if it made sense? Who knows? I think I looked cute. I did not look cute looking back. This was the time of the Christina Aguilera hair, of the stripes in your hair. And I had the stripes, but I had some good mentors along the way that even said to me, yeah, those stripes, like, no. My one coworker who helped me out said to me, yeah, that scarf is a little bit too much. He's like, I don't even think Katie Couric can get away with that. And I was like, okay. We didn't know anything back then. And also, that's kind of like why I do what I do to help people who are starting out so they don't have to waste time. I want to give them that. So I started putting together a reel and hopped from New York One to a small station which doesn't even exist anymore in Staten Island, New York, SI 76. If you haven't heard of it, you're not alone. From there, I went to Connecticut, and I worked at 2 different stations in Connecticut. And then by that time, I was much better. And I jumped to New York and then to DC.
Being a journalist, what can you tell us about some of the stories that you worked on that are really memorable to you?
I have 2 types of stories that I love to work on. The stories about the voices that need to be heard but aren't heard. So I am all about lifting up the voices of any marginalized community. I actually have a story today that I'm going to be shooting with a Black transgender woman who is going to be a marshal of the NYC Pride celebration this year. So I'm really excited about that. I tell stories about sex trafficking, domestic violence survivors, people who have a disability, telling their stories. When their voice hasn't been heard and they've been wronged in some way, I'm the one that I love to make those phone calls and ask the tough questions. Now, that's one thing that I love to do. The other thing is anything having to do with a dog. If there's a dog story, you can find me there. A dog food truck, sign me up. Dogs being trained by prisoners, I'm in. Police dogs, sign me up. I'm all about dogs because I just think that they're so sweet.
Do you have one? Do you have a dog?
I actually have a dog at my feet right now.
Oh.
I have 2 dogs. One is at my feet, and he always is here. He does not contribute to podcasts, but he just gives me that support.
He's moral support. Well, why do you think that you are so good at getting these stories out of people who need their voice heard? Do you think it's just something about the questions you ask? Is it your personality? What makes these people open up to you?
Great question. I know that I am them. They are me and I am them. And of course, that doesn't mean that I've been through what they've been through, but I've been through some stuff and I don't care what people think of me. I'm not here to be that perfectly polished person on TV who says everything perfectly, although I have to do that sometimes and it's frustrating. I have to say things in a certain way that a producer has written at times. And hey, I can do that. But I'm not here to be a reporter first and a person second. I know the importance of stories. I know that in this world that is so divided, that we have people that just can't see eye to eye on simple things, that stories bring us together. And if I can tell someone the story of someone that just got out of prison and is really making a way for themselves, maybe they'll understand that that person is not so different from them.
Right. You're making the stories relatable.
Yeah.
That's important. I'm just taking away from you the fact that when you grew up, you probably didn't feel very heard, right?
You better believe it.
Right? Yeah. So do you think that that might have been what led you to be this advocate?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And I'll even tell people a little bit about my story. There's many stories that I've done where we're friends now. And they'll invite me to speak at whatever graduation, or like there's one amazing story that I was a part of where there's this organization that helps people who are out of the prison system to start businesses, because it's very hard to get a job when you've got something like that on your record. And I go back there all the time to speak and offer advice and stuff. And they look at me dressed in my news dress with my makeup on, and they probably can size me up and think, well, what does she have to say to me? And when I tell them about some of the things I've been through, now they want to listen. Now, I haven't been through exactly what they've been through, but they don't think I've been through anything. They think that if I broke a nail, it was like a really bad day. And it's so not.
So you tell them a little bit about yourself, have them open up to you, and then really get the story and then be able to share that with others so that other people understand.
Yeah, and inspire them too, because that's a lot of my business is inspiration. I do a lot of coaching. My business itself is coaching people. And it's not just on camera stuff, it's life stuff. When people say, hey, how do I be confident on camera? I'm like, hey, who are you to be small? You've got a story. If the world has conspired to put you in front of this microphone, then guess what? The world needs to hear what you have to say. So get out of your way, because we need to hear it. You are unique and perfect the way you are. If you're going to sit there and think about other things, what that person's doing or what that person looks like, you can't compare yourself because you're uncomparable. Is that a word? Incomparable?
Incomparable?
Incomparable. That's actually the word. See, I don't get everything right. I mess up, but maybe people think you don't because you're on TV at the White House. But yeah, incomparable. That's the word.
You can probably think back to yourself when you were schlepping that equipment around New York City and making such little money that you could have just easily turned it in. But instead, you wanted your voice to be heard and you wanted to keep going. And look what you've made of yourself.
Yeah. And I enjoy the use of the word schlepping because that is such a New York word.
It's a New York word, but I schlepped as a production assistant all around the city as well. So I'm with you. I remember those days.
Hot out, cold out.
Carrying the beta tapes. I used to work at MTV and I would have to take them from one building to the other, carrying in plastic bags, breaking my little arms. So the world
didn't have to be so big. What were they thinking?
I have no idea. So let's talk about your awards that you've won over the years.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I have a couple of awards that I forget what they're for. I'm like, oh yeah, look at that one over there. My 2 awards that I'm very proud of. And it wasn't because of me specifically. It was a team effort. That's why I'm so proud. I've got my Emmy over there and my Murrow over there behind me. No one can see this, but just trust me, I've got the Emmy and Murrow behind me right now. Those are both team efforts. The one that I'm most proud of, it's the Emmy, because I was a weekend anchor in Washington, D.C. And as a weekend anchor in this market, you'd think it's a pretty big market, but a lot of people who work on the weekend were maybe junior or didn't have as much experience as I did. And so I would lead the team. It was really on me to be a managing editor and look and see, okay, like, how can we tell this story? How can we set up this newscast? We covered the March for Our Lives after Parkland, and that was in DC, and it was incredibly moving. I was part of really shaping that and shaping the cold open to the show and sitting there and listening to it and logging the bites that really just hit me in the gut. And so it wasn't just anchoring the show, it was being a part of the whole process of putting together the show. And that's what the Emmy was for. And now we're going to have another March for Our Lives here in Washington, D.C. soon.
For Uvalde?
It's going to be another really moving time. The Murrow was for a local story here in which a young Black man was killed at the hands of police as he was trying to ride his motorcycle. There was a lot of back and forth about, was he riding in a way that was dangerous, reckless, but at the end of the day, he died, and it was at the hands of police. And this is a story that's told all the time in America. And this was one specific moment in time here in DC. And of course, since then, there have been so many more. His name is Terrence Sterling.
It's so important to have someone like you and your team to bring these stories to us, the viewers, to really understand, because we might not have any idea of really the lives and the people behind these stories if you don't bring those to us.
It's what makes local news so incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. You're still doing on-camera reporting as a journalist, but now you have your own business as well.
Yeah, that means that I never sleep, basically. I love reporting. I love telling these stories, and I'm very blessed that I get to do it at the national level. And I love my business. And my business has morphed a little bit over the years, but started out one-on-one coaching for young women and men as well. But mostly it's women who find me, who are on camera in TV news. Then, of course, it expanded out to give on-camera skills and guidance to all sorts of people, whether they be an entrepreneur, an author, a lot of faculty at colleges. I'll do presentations for them. And I'm also writing a book now, and it came out of the coaching, because when you're spending all that time with 20-something women, you realize that you're not just giving them skills on how to stand in front of the camera. You're giving them skills on how to show up in a room, how to be confident and ask for that raise, how to negotiate maybe with your boyfriend. Like, where do we stand in this relationship? And so it's mindset, it's everything. And so I'm taking all of these ideas and putting it in a book called Beep, I Wish I Knew in My 20s.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And you have YouTube videos.
And part of it is a podcast. I want to be like you. I want to have a podcast. And so that's part of that. It's going to be a video podcast and audio podcast.
Amazing. Tell me some of the lessons that you've discussed in these videos so far.
Oh my gosh. There's so many things. Okay, here's one for everybody. There's a difference between being and doing. And this is something when you're in your 20s. And I know I did this. I worked my beep off. I don't know how much I can curse in this podcast. So I worked my beep off, and I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. I outworked everyone around me. Oh, you want me to work in the overnight shift? Yeah, I'm here. Oh, you want me to work Christmas and New Year's? I'm here. And when I'm doing all of that, what I'm doing is telling the world that I think I need to overwork in order to have worth. And so if I can focus more on being that network reporter, even though I'm in market 192, showing up with excellence every day and having the confidence and peace within me to know that I am worthy, then I'm going to have more opportunities. It shows up in the world. And so I did a lot of being versus doing. I did a lot of doing out there, even with my business. Started my business, worked my butt off. And so what am I telling people? That I have to work very, 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 very hard. So much that I'm making myself sick, or I'm not getting enough sleep. And then I'm kind of looking kind of tired, and I'm saying I'm not worth it. I'm not worth it to have balance. So there's a being versus doing. And if you just actually take a moment to focus on who you are being in that moment, you can really set a tone. You're responsible for the energy you bring in the room and what kind of energy you think I'm bringing when I'm working 15 hours a day. Not great energy.
Wow, mind blown right now. That was me in my 20s. Now, as we're older, we can look back and say that that was wrong. Showing that you're part of the team, working the late hours is great. But why are you doing it and not someone else? And how else could you have showed up and
show up like a leader, and I have to show up like a leader and I have to say no sometimes.
That's hard for us.
So hard, especially in an industry where it feels like there's lack of opportunities, but I cannot let that color my experience. I can't show up like there's a lack of opportunities. I have to show up like there's money falling out of the sky. Mm-hmm. And then who am I going to be? How am I going to walk through the world? Totally different. Totally. A lot of my clients are like, but I have to work, I have to take this shift. Okay, well, do you hear yourself? You're rooted in this nervousness. And when you're nervous, you make other people nervous. But if you show up confident, like a leader, like I got this, I'm not going to be able to take that Saturday shift, but you know what? I could do that Sunday shift, but I can't come in until 3. Is that okay? Someone's asking you a favor. Don't make it like you have to do it. No, I'll do you that favor.
Right. You're bending over backwards, but you're meeting them with, oh, I can't do this, but I can do this. That's respect. They're going to respect you.
Respect is what it's all about. But we got to earn respect. And first thing, we got to respect ourselves.
So you're teaching these women how to respect themselves to move it along a little further in their industry.
The whole thing is they are incredible women and they are changing the world with every story they do. And so I know they respect themselves. They respect what they do. It's just that they don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. And we get stuck in a loop in our head of just, the world tells us we're not enough. The world tells us our thighs are too big. And the world tells us that women are not respected as much as men. If you think about some of the things we see in the news these days, how could we not pick up these tiny ideas? And I'm just here to shake them up to say, hey, let's take a moment and look at this. When you say, yes, sure, I'll take that shift. And I'm not saying anyone shouldn't take a shift. I just want to make sure. Believe me, I've taken every shift. I've worked every shift. And, hey, if CBS calls me and says, we need you tomorrow, I'll be there. But it's just the energy with which we do these things. And you have to say no sometimes.
These are things that you've learned over the years that now you can share to your listeners, your readers, your clients. It's so invaluable to have someone on the inside who's where these women want to be, telling them, hey, these are the steps you can take to get here.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. They'll reach out to me with anything. One woman just emailed me because she got a new job in a new place, a big market, and she's producing and anchoring. A lot to be celebrated there. A lot. It's not easy to move to a whole new place and then be on TV that week. And so, of course, somebody had something to say on Facebook and said, oh, I don't like this woman. Like, I don't like this new person, whatever. She was like, how much should I let this bother me? I'm so excited that you actually asked me this because I got a good answer for you. This is a guy who has a car as his profile picture, and I don't see his face. He is a person who's home tapping out stuff on his phone or his computer to a news station on a Saturday morning. How's he changing the world for the better? How's he showing up? You moved across the country. You put yourself out there, and you probably know Brene Brown talks about that incredible quote about daring greatly. The kudos goes to the person in the ring whose skin has got, dirt on it and who's like a little mussed up because they're out there doing the thing, not the jerk in the stands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, nah, he don't get to occupy rent in your head. He can't live there rent free. Sorry.
That reminder must have just made her feel so much better because it's the truth that she needed to hear from someone else when she is just getting used to that criticism that is probably so much more rampant than it was many years ago with social media now.
It is. And it's incredible in these small markets. They think that they own these newscasters, that they can, say whatever they want. You shouldn't say anything to anybody. You should never call a person a name, and you should never comment on people's appearances or voice. You wouldn't do it in the street, so why would you do it on Facebook? What kind of a sad ass person are you? So right. I just had to remember, it's the guy who can't even put his face in his profile picture.
Exactly. That's not even worth the argument.
I know.
Also, just for the sake of the conversation, men don't get affected by those Facebook comments like we do. I think that's just a whole nother thing that you can teach your clients the confidence to just shut it off. Focus on what you're doing. You're serving that community. I have all the admiration for this woman.
First of all, you moved across the country to take a new job.
Yep.
Let's just stop right there. That's really badass. And it makes me so angry that people do that, but people gonna stupid, you know?
They're going to do it. But I love that you're there to hype these women up and make them see the good in themselves and what they should focus on to make their career what they want. And that's so important.
Yeah, thank you. And so it's now the book and the podcast will be expanded, of course, to people that aren't in TV news. Anybody could listen to it.
So when can we expect the podcast and the book?
The book, I am working with a book coach. We've got it out to agents, but the podcast will be launching in July.
I'm very excited for the podcast. That's going to be huge and so inspirational for everyone. I'm excited for that. If listeners want to work with you, is it one-on-one coaching, group coaching? How does that work?
I have something for TV journalists called The Membership, and I also have a digital course. Through The Membership, they get group time with me. They can also upgrade to one-on-ones. If you're not in TV news and you want to work with me, you just send me an email and we can work it out. I also have a digital course for non-TV people as well. So that's another way that they could work with me.
And that's all on your website?
All on my website.
Easy. Okay, great. Speaking of that, you also have a blog, and I was looking at some of your posts. You had a post about Beyonce has people for that. Let's just talk about that because, again, another huge reminder for women, for men, for anyone who...
Yeah. For a while there's been those girl boss kind of quotes and things, and hey, I'm all about rah, rah, rah. But remember, Beyonce looks the way she does because she has people for that. And J-Lo too. And I could look at them all day. Believe me, I follow them on Instagram. I'll see every movie. I'll listen to every song. And they're incredibly talented. But that's their job. That's their job. I mean, my job is to be on TV. You think I haven't had Botox? I mean, I spend a lot more time than the average person probably with all these different beauty things. I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But you know what Beyonce and J-Lo do? Like, oh my gosh. So I feel like we have to just be kind to ourselves. Beyonce has people for that. So we do have the same amount of hours in a day. It's just going to look a little bit different for the average person.
Very true. That's a reminder we all need to think about when we wake up in the morning and plan our day. You also have a free guide with the 3 tips to get into the top 10 market.
I try to give out as much as I can for free. So if you follow me on social, you'll see I'm always trying to give out some tips. And a lot of it's life advice. But the thing about working in a top 10 market or at network, what I realized is, I worked hard, like I said, and it was great. I worked hard. I learned all the things I needed to learn. And there's no shame in our games. Like if you don't know how to use your voice powerfully, go get a voice coach. If you aren't sure how to do your makeup, go to the Mac counter. They'll hook you up. If you're not sure how to really tell an award-winning story, there are conferences where you can learn all sorts of things. Find a mentor. There's all of these things, but I realized the one thing that was keeping me from getting to where I am now was my mindset. And so I thought that there were people who worked at network or worked at top 10 markets who were better than me. And I don't know where I picked up this silly idea about the world, but there was something perfect, or maybe they came from the right family, had an advantage, went to the right school. We look at that perfect scenario. Maybe it's someone who is just gorgeous, knows how to dress perfectly. I thought that's them. And then there's me over here. And it's actually not true. Everybody has worth regardless of the school they went to and their family situation. But it took me a long time. And when I finally was kind to myself and just accepted me for who I was, that's when I really got somewhere. It's that whole calling thing and also having the mindset that you're enough. I kept calling and calling after Susan Zorinsky gave my name to the talent person, because what happened was I was supposed to go to another person after that, and she never called me back. And so I was like, oh, she didn't call me back. Maybe she didn't like me. No, that's not true. You keep calling. I had to keep reminding myself. So I called again and I sent an email and finally I was like, I'll be in New York on this date and I would love to, grab 10 minutes with you. All those emails and all those calls. all of them with the energy of I'm worth it. Never. So it was always with the right intention and energy. That's when she said, okay, sure. And I met with her, and I'll be honest with you, she was not effusive about me. I did not get a good vibe from her. She said, do you have any more reporting? And I'm like, lady, what are you thinking? I've been doing all these years. She didn't know me. So that's fine. I didn't make anything of that either. And I just gave her more information when I got home. And then she said, well, I'll give your stuff over to the person in DC, but I can't make any promises. So not really sounding that positive, but I didn't let it stop me. I go to meet this person in DC, who's my boss now. And the whole time that I had this mistaken notion of you need to be X and I'm Y, I was wrong, because the person who I ended up meeting for this interview in DC didn't even see my reel. She just Googled me and she saw my TEDx talk where I talked about being a high school dropout. And that's what she watched. And so the second I walked in, she was like, we have so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, I'm from New York too. And we talked about all of these things that we had in common. And it was me being me that she connected to. Had nothing to do with the stories that I did, my resume. No, she didn't know. She just liked me for who I was. So this hiding and pretending to be this perfect person with perfect hair and not telling anybody that I was a high school dropout and really kind of just, when people talked about their school, just like not talking about mine at all. Like, I don't know. It's silly. Well, all that was for nothing, because when I finally decided I was enough is when I was enough. But it takes that decision. For everyone, has nothing to do with top 10 markets. It's that decision of I am enough.
You walked in there and that woman said, I don't care about everything else.
Yeah.
It's you I want to talk to. It's something about the way you presented yourself in that TED Talk. And that is such a wonderful reminder to people to be themselves. Otherwise, that opportunity could just fall to the wayside.
Yeah. If you don't believe in yourself, how the hell is anyone else going to?
Right. And you're still working for her.
Yeah. It's a really great reminder of stop beating yourself up. One of my colleagues, Errol Barnett, said in a talk, there's enough people out there who are going to stand in your way, who are maybe not going to help you or make it harder for you. Don't you be one of them. And I remember that quote, and I tell lots of people this, because don't be one of them. We're standing in our way sometimes with our small limiting thoughts.
All the time. That is such an amazing quote. You could have easily said, oh, she didn't call me back. She doesn't like me. All right, I'm just not going to try again. You know what? Someone doesn't like you until they tell you they don't like you. And that's not going to happen. Yep. So you keep
Exactly. You got to call me and say, I don't like you, for me to go, oh, okay. And I tell my clients this, and they just don't want to listen to me. They don't want to believe me. And I'm like, you call them again. This is a lot of my coaching. Or I get this, I'm bad at negotiating. And they're all like in their head. I'm like, oh, how did the last negotiation go for you? Oh, I haven't done it before. So how do you know you're bad at it? Be impeccable with your words. Mm-hmm. I am hesitant about negotiating because I don't have a strategy. Okay, well, now you're being impeccable with your words, but don't beat yourself up. I'm bad. Don't you ever tell yourself you're bad. But I did it for a long time. I just have years on these women. That's all. I have been through it. I have told myself I was terrible and bad and unacceptable for a long time. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
And you don't have to. You have proven yourself time and time again. And now you're entering what I'll call your second act of going back and serving a new audience with your podcast, with your book, with your coaching business. You're serving them, teaching them what it took you so long to learn on your own.
That's the thing. I just want to help people not suffer like I had to. Like, I could have been so much further along if only I had a me to help me out. So I want to be that for other people.
What do you think a common thread is between all of these different steps you've taken in life or these life changes that you've had?
That's a great question. There were a lot of no's along the way. A lot of no's. Way more no's than yeses. And people don't see that when they see you standing at the White House. They don't know about the no's. The people who said, nah. I hope they're watching, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they do see me there. But anyway, there were a lot of no's and only a couple of yeses. And I just feel like if I let those no's stop me, I would never have gotten to the yeses. You can't let those no's mean anything. They have to be just a not now versus a no.
I think a lot of, especially the younger generation, they think like, okay, it has to be immediate. No, it doesn't have to be immediate. Keep working towards it.
Yeah. And what happens is that we see these top 30 under 30, top 40 under 40. I mean, I get it. And that'd be great. Like, that's really nice. Like, wow, I'd feel really good about myself for like an hour and then I'd be done. Like, I don't think anyone cares after that. It's nice to be on those lists, but what happened to the top? What if I was the 31st person? Am I not worthy? You know, and I don't need to go out there and tell a story that millions of people see. What if I did a story that one person saw and it changed their life? Just, you never know who you're affecting. I think this world sets us up to like, just compare ourselves and you got to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be the optimal candidate. The perfect candidate has this degree and that much experience and looks like this and does this and is this age. I don't need to be that. I need to be me. I'll find my home.
You're going to tune into people that you resonate with, and that's your audience.
And if it isn't there, build it.
Build
right?
it, yep.
Right? Like you have a podcast that really lights you up. No one said, hey, I'm going to hire you for this podcast. No, you built it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that's the thing, is that we get to create things. If only we believe in ourselves.
So important. And that brings me to something that I know you say a lot is there's power in words. What is the power of words in your storytelling and the story that you tell yourself, I guess?
Well, it starts with the story you tell yourself in your head. Then it comes out in actual words. But many times I've looked at myself in the mirror and thought, unacceptable. You know, I don't like my nose. I don't like my eyes. I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too this. So I've really said some mean things to myself over the years. I apologize, self. But again, when we talk to ourselves, and yesterday, my husband and I, this is a silly story, he had an electric scooter, and then he thought it'd be a really great idea if I had one. And I was like, this is great. But you know what? Hills are real things. I didn't know what it would be like to go down a hill or up a hill. And so I'm trying to tell him, like, listen, I'm not as strong as you. You have to be patient with me. Like, I'm not good at this. And I heard myself. A coach that tells people don't say these words, go back to an old theme of, I'm not good at this. I'm not strong. It's hard for me. And I'm making it harder. I realized what I was doing. And I said, oh, we're not doing that anymore. And I chose to believe in myself. And literally anytime I've chosen it, in the moment, I've been like more steady on the scooter. I wasn't hesitating. And when you're hesitating is when you make those dumb mistakes. You're like, ooh, let me not go over that bump, or let me jump off right here because I got scared. And then you fall down. And that's kind of like life.
It's the mindfulness. Like you said, it comes back to that, and to really just knowing yourself, knowing what you want to believe, and then that, and manifesting it.
Yeah. And really being impeccable with your words is, I think, the most important thing. As a storyteller whose currency is words, I'm using words. So I'm never going to call something an inferno if it's a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also not going to call it a blaze, because we don't talk like that. But I'm talking to a producer, so you know your stuff.
Is there a moment in your career where you said, okay, I've made it to where I want to be?
I think that I can remember that moment, yes. But it's so funny, and I'm working on this. The moment comes and then it's on to the next thing. Isn't that incredible?
Yep.
I think when I first did a CBS weekend evening news live hit at the White House, that was when I thought, wow, how the heck did they let me do this? How did I get here? Because I'm not a political reporter. There are people that know politics left and right. I'm just a storyteller. I just tell the story that's in front of me. And I just remember thinking, wow, how did I get here? I mean, I know how I got here, hard work and proving myself. I'd been working there for a while, but it was filling in on the CBS weekend evening news that really hit me. A couple of people who saw me, a couple of old managers from the past, and they were like, wow, I got to see you. It's so wonderful to see you doing so well. And that was a moment for me. And then, you know, the next moment comes. And then you're filling in again, or you're doing another story. And so it kind of is fleeting. I know that I think we had some wine that night, you know, we celebrated, but it's on to the next. And I just remember when I took a year off from news. I started my business after I left my last local news job, in which my boss was not digging me. And I was put in a position where it wasn't working for me anymore. And that's another life lesson. Don't stay in a room where you're not celebrated or appreciated. And so I left and started this business. And for 1 year, I did the most incredible stuff. I was so proud of building a website, building a business, building an offering, building a mailing list, figuring out an email customer journey, creating a sales page, creating a digital course. I did so many amazing things in that year. And when I got back into TV, that's when people were like, oh man, you are killing it. And I'm like, I've been killing it. You just haven't been looking. Your idea of killing it is different. And so killing it is a lot of things. You don't have to be standing at the White House to be killing it.
I love that. You're absolutely right. And that's amazing that you were able to take that year to really build it to a place where you were thriving.
It was incredible. And you know what? I didn't make a lot of money that first year, but I didn't lose money. That's success to me.
That's success. And then your colleagues saw that. Wow, what can Debra do now? Like, she's on to the next thing. Exciting.
That was always a lesson for me, because there is this, like, TV news. When you're in it, you think it's the be all and end all. And there's an ego about it. But I'm just telling stories out here.
You're enjoying it. And that's all that matters, is that you are excited to tell the story this afternoon. You're excited to bring these stories to people. And you also get to have your business at the same time. So you're in a great place. You've got a lot going on.
And I'm trying to have balance. I'm trying to be healthy and have balance and end my work day at a certain time, but it's not easy. And I'm sure you know that.
Yes. Balance is a crazy word. I try not to use too often because I don't think it really exists. As much as we try. All right, it's time for our 5 fast cues of the week. Here we go. Name one thing that these different chapters in your life have taught you.
That you are the only person out there for you. You got to make it happen. Ain't nobody coming. There's no white knight. No one's going to knock on your door and give you an opportunity. If you're not out there actively making it happen, then you are just sitting around, my friend.
Would you recommend taking a leap into a big life change for your best friend?
100%. Unless my best friend, it wasn't the right time for them, but I'd invite them to consider thinking about it for the future. Their timing is important, but I always think you have to bet on yourself.
What is the one piece of advice that you would give someone who is starting a second act today?
It will look different in a year than what you think it's going to look like now. Be flexible. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself grace. There's nothing you can't figure out. If you have an internet connection, the whole world is at your fingertips. You can learn anything from podcasting to website design to creating a business to being a coach to you name it. Literally, you can learn anything.
What does the next chapter look like for you?
The next chapter looks like I'm on stages speaking and motivating and inspiring people. And I have a book deal, a several book deal. And the podcast is something that people really like and resonate with.
I can see it happening very soon, very soon. Where can our audience connect with you?
You can always email me if you're interested in anything having to do with my business. And that would be at Debra@DebraAlfarone.com. And I hang out a lot on Instagram and TikTok. So shockingly, I'm at Debra Alfarone. So that it'd be easy to find me at either. But I love to drop my gems of wisdom. And, a lot of this stuff is stuff I learned from other people. And I love to do Q&As. So if you got a question, a life advice question, hit me up on TikTok, hit me up on Instagram, and I will answer you in a video.
All right. Well, thank you, Debra. This has been so eye-opening, so fascinating, and I'm going to continue to watch your career grow. I'm excited for the book and the podcast, and I just thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. If there's anything that I can ever do to support you and this podcast, you let me know. At all. I am so blown away by how you get stuff done and how professional this podcast is. And just, you are incredible. I really had a great time. You are a great interviewer. Oh. Coming from an interviewer, you're a fabulous interviewer.
Oh, thank you. That means so much to me. Debra is hysterical. I hope you enjoyed her as much as I did. It was so much fun chatting about TV and sharing stories with her. But I really loved how she's using her experiences and her skills to help other women feel confident on camera and off camera. To learn more about Debra, go to DebraAlfarone.com and check out her new podcast called Beep, I Wish I Knew in My 20s. I'll have links in the show notes as well so you don't miss an episode. I hope you will join me on Thursday for another new episode of Second Act Success. This time we'll be featuring Liz McDade. She is a PhD scientist who decided to pivot and open her own business. Her business is called No Trace, and she educates others on living a low to no waste lifestyle. Thanks again, as always, for listening. See you next time. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found some gems of inspiration and some takeaways to help you on your path to second act success. To view show notes from this episode, recommend a guest with a great story, and learn more about us, visit secondactsuccess.co. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Reviews only take a few moments, and they really do mean so much. Thank you again for listening. I am Shannon Russell, and this is Second Act Success.